Breaking news right now out of Helena. The U.S. Marshals have arrested a man. If it wasn't for our camera lights, we'd be in the dark. Residents tell me the evidence is in plain sight. We've been around to several World Games venues today. Haven't seen too many people wearing masks. The spectators don't seem very concerned about COVID. The sheriff's office is looking for answers after they found human remains. How are the drugs getting in?
The inmates are not bringing it in.
How would you make up the rest of the 14?
Well, we're going to be working with all of our partners on that.
Neighbors and environmental groups fighting the potentially dangerous emissions coming from Bluestone Coke can breathe a sigh of relief tonight. We're here at the Chapel at the Waters where Lindy Blanchard has just arrived. Tell us, how are you feeling so far tonight?
Excited.
In addition to the efforts from Democrats, there is at least one bipartisan push to deal with abortion access after the Supreme Court ruling. Even just along the shoulder here, you can see how cracked the side of the roadway is. You can see her behind me. The building is left charred and crumbling. And that has to do with what's being dumped in this water. If you live on this side of the tracks, it's a guessing game when a train's coming through and how long you could get stuck. Big news for fans of the Mexican pizza, which I found out during the break. Carly here is a fan.
I do love the Mexican pizza.
Michael, you know, I'd have to say I kind of disagree with the majority of the state, I guess. I'm more of a chocolate person, so I would go for the Reese's or the M&Ms as opposed to a Starburst. But
I was saying that even before that ring came out.
I like it all. It's all sugar. The Alabama Department of Corrections has refused to speak with us and other media organizations about the deaths out of Donaldson Correctional Facility, and quite frankly, many of the concerns in prisons across the state. At Donaldson, the Jefferson County coroner tells me the homicide rate has tripled, and deadly drugs like fentanyl are getting through prison walls.
I'm lucky to survive. By the grace of God, I'm lucky to be out here alive.
At 21 years old, Ronald McKeithen was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
It was a robbery where no one was hurt or injured.
McKeithen served 37 years behind bars until he got a second chance at freedom.
The DA took my petition to the judge and said, hey, you need to sign this. And once I got out, I just started went to work.
Alabama Appleseed, the same organization that helped get him out, hired McKeithen to work with inmates and advocate for better conditions inside prisons like Donaldson.
They're telling me that because of the lack of officers, there have been many nights when there's only 5 officers running the whole prison.
In one word, how would you describe Donaldson Correctional Facility?
Chaotic. Just strictly chaotic. That is not safe for anyone there, officer or inmate.
McKeithen says the facility is even worse now than when he was there. Homicides inside Donaldson so far this year have already tripled. According to the Jefferson County coroner, 6 people were murdered in 2022.
Predominantly, we dealt with natural deaths out of William Donaldson, and we're seeing more traumatic deaths, some of which are due to homicide, then that can be an indicator, obviously, of more violence.
Jefferson County Coroner Bill Yates says this year more inmates are dying from both homicides and overdoses. So far in 2022, 12 inmates in the county died from a drug overdose. 7 of those were at Donaldson.
So what we're seeing in the prison is fentanyl, and we're seeing methamphetamine. So those same types of mixtures, those same products that's on the street is getting through the walls of the prison.
Amidst the rise in overdose deaths and homicides inside state prisons, the Alabama Department of Corrections hasn't released any information to the public. We asked the department to answer our questions and were denied an interview. So we questioned the commissioner directly at an execution press conference in September. Commissioner, can you address the increase in violence and homicides at Donaldson Correctional Facility?
Not at this time, I won't.
Can we set up a time to do it another time?
Yeah, maybe so. Certainly.
When we followed up with the Alabama Department of Corrections, a spokesperson still denied us that interview despite the commissioner's comment. We then brought the same questions to Attorney General Steve Marshall.
We have a violent population. The people that are serving time in prison right now need to be in facilities that we can accommodate and deal with them in a safe way, but we also need to make sure that we're keeping staff safe. But it's a tough population to deal with.
We're also seeing a rise in opioid overdose deaths inside prisons, which begs the question of how are the drugs getting inside prison walls?
No, I mean, I think it's a great question. When we see contraband being brought in, it raises questions that we need to be able to address, and I'm assuming is on the commissioner's radar.
McKeithen says that's been happening for years, and it's fueling the violence.
Inside a prison where you got a lot of drug use, you got a lot of anger, it's going to get crazy.
How are the drugs getting in?
The inmates are not bringing it in. I mean, like, how can the inmates bring drugs in? It's got to be the officers. It's got to be the staff.
Freedom! Across the state,
Repeal the Habitual Offender Act.
People are rallying for change, pointing the blame on Alabama Department of Corrections and state leaders.
We're tired of more people coming out in body bags than they are making parole.
I have stepped through more blood than I have stepped through grass during my time in prison.
Making their voices heard as the state remains silent.
What would you say to Governor Ivey, Commissioner John Hamm, Attorney General Stephen Marshall about the prisons, the people who can change things?
I would tell them to find their heart. You got the power to stop all these deaths going in and out that gate.
In recent months, there's been a number of concerning images and videos from inside Alabama prisons circulating on social media sites like TikTok. They show inmates being beaten, severely sick, and poor conditions inside prisons. Due to legal issues, we're not able to show them to you, but you can see them yourself by searching Alabama prison inmate TikTok. Good evening. This is West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. Now, you might be wondering what he has to do with a coke plant here in Birmingham. Governor Justice and his family actually have a pretty big hand in the coal industry, not just in West Virginia, but here in Alabama, too. The governor's website here says they own Bluestone Resources, the company that operates Bluestone Coke. The governor's son, Jay Justice, was appointed the CEO. Right now, Bluestone Coke doesn't have a business license, and if you remember from our report in September, the plant is also under fire from the Jefferson County Department of Health for air regulation violations. Neighbors who live nearby believe when Bluestone Coke was operating, it was making them sick, and fear that will continue if the plant resumes production in the spring.
It just woke me up out of my sleep because I couldn't catch my breath due to the smell.
When Amanda Doctor moved to North Birmingham back in June, she says it didn't take long before she noticed something wasn't right with the air she's breathing.
My asthma is kicking in more. I have to be on my breathing machine every night now.
You believe since you've moved here, your health conditions have gotten worse?
Yes, it really has.
Doctor blames the emissions from Bluestone Coke, which is right next to her neighborhood. The plant uses coal to produce Foundry Coke. Eric Harrod, who lives right across the street from Bluestone, showed us how the soot collects on his cars. Soot, he believes, is from Bluestone Coke. He's even more worried about what it's doing to his lungs.
I don't know what I'm breathing, all that contamination over there. It's just a lot of stuff, man.
Greater Birmingham Alliance to Stop Pollution's executive director Michael Hansen says neighbors here in North Birmingham call them with alarming concerns, fearing for their lives.
Residents have been telling us for years about the health impacts, ranging from asthma attacks all the way to cancer and death.
According to court documents, the Jefferson County Department of Health says Bluestone was violating several regulations put in place to protect the air quality and people's health.
To see the health department finally come out with some strong actions, we're totally in support of that and thankful for it.
GASP has successfully intervened into the civil suit against Bluestone Coke, hoping to get justice for the residents. In addition to the health concerns, we confirmed Bluestone Coke doesn't have a business license. According to the Birmingham Tax and License Division and Jefferson County Revenue Department, the company does not have an active business license in the city or county. Over the last several months, CBS 42 has reached out dozens of times by phone and email, requesting an interview with Bluestone Coke officials and Bluestone Resources owner, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. All of those requests were either denied or unanswered. We even joined this Zoom press conference for Governor Justice back in late October, and we were removed from the call before we had the chance to ask questions. So then we went to Alabama Governor Kay Ivey to see if she's aware of what another governor is doing in her state. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice is operating Bluestone Coke in Birmingham without a Bluestone Coke in Birmingham without a business license and with health violations. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I certainly don't have any details on that. Best you check with the company and what you said in Birmingham.
Do you think we should be holding him accountable? He's the governor of West Virginia.
Well, everybody needs to be held accountable.
And accountability is exactly what neighbors in North Birmingham are asking for, saying their health is on the line.
Bluestone should take the time. Walk around and look what you are doing.
According to the Jefferson County Department of Health, the plant is currently in a cold idle, meaning they aren't producing any coke. In a press release, Bluestone officials said back in October they plan to continue operations in April 2022. They promised to make upgrades to their facility that will increase safety, but haven't shared the specifics on how that will happen.
Local coverage you can count on. This is the CBS 42 Morning News.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Chloe Vincente, and you're watching the CBS 42 Morning News. Thank you so much for waking up nice and early with us. We're going to start with Storm Team meteorologist Michael Haynes and your Storm Team forecast. Michael, we have just been having the most beautiful fall weather. Really cannot complain. I could have this weather every day of the year.
That's right, Chloe. We'll take it. That's for sure. We've had plenty of sunshine the past couple of days.
Michael, thank you. All eyes are on the Crimson Tide as yesterday's game wrapped up homecoming in Tuscaloosa. A full week of festivities led up to the big showdown at Bryant-Denny Stadium. CBS 42's Allie Root was in the middle of all the action on campus and got a taste of what the fans have to say. Allie, thank you. Meanwhile, as homecoming was going on, Alabama took on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Coming up later in sports, Taylor Kaufman will have your complete recap of the game. And it was a somber moment at Bryant-Denny Stadium yesterday, a moment of silence in honor of Mississippi State offensive lineman Sam Westmoreland. The 18-year-old freshman died suddenly on Wednesday. The cause of death has not been released. Friday would have been his 19th birthday. As we approach winter, health experts warn people to be aware of the dangers of carbon monoxide. Heaters, generators, and even candles can put you at risk. Experts recommend not running space heaters in enclosed spaces. Captain Orlando Reynolds with Birmingham Fire and Rescue says it's important to check the batteries on your carbon monoxide detector and smoke detector every 6 months.
Anytime you have any questions or you feel like you're in danger, call 911, get us out there. We'll inspect and see what you got. If we can't help you, we'll give you the necessary resources that can.
Captain Reynolds says a carbon monoxide detector should be installed over every level of your home. Well, Halloween may still be 9 days away, but that didn't stop one group of witches from getting a head start. The Trussville Witches Ride made its way through Cahaba Homestead yesterday evening. The ride honors a young boy who is battling cancer. Registration fees and donations will go to help his family pay for medical expenses. Awards were given out for Best Witch, Best Group Theme, and Best Broomstick. The ride wrapped up with a country western themed after party. And experts say Americans are expected to spend big this Halloween. The National Retail Federation predicts Halloween shopping will return to pre-pandemic levels. Americans are spending an estimated $10.6 billion on costumes, candy, and decorations. But this year, it's going to cost more due to inflation. Candy alone is up 13%. Julie Rome, Chief Marketing Officer for Party City, says they're not seeing the supply chain issues that impacted the holiday last year, so there should be plenty of those Spider-Man outfits, which is expected to be this year's top costume, and others are just flying off the shelves right now.
Encanto was a smash hit. That's a really big one as well. We have Top Gun 2, my favorite, the Sanderson sisters, get together with a couple girlfriends, do the hocus pocus thing.
Another growing trend, pet costumes. Americans are expected to spend $700 million just to dress up their furry friends, myself included. I just got my dog a pumpkin costume. Well, Election Day is just over 2 weeks away, and candidates across the country are making their case to voters. Control of the House and Senate hangs in the balance, and in some states, voting is already underway. Bradley Blackburn has more from the campaign trail.
Coast to coast, it is a final push in tight midterm races.
At his rally in Texas, former President Trump railed against the January 6th committee, but he did not say whether he will comply with the subpoena they sent him Friday. The deadline to register to vote here in Alabama is tomorrow. Several big races will be on the ballot in the state. That includes the race for governor and the U.S. Senate seat held by Richard Shelby. The general election is November 8th. You can find information about the candidates and a link to register to vote on our free CBS 42 News app. Just search voter registration. Turning now to the ongoing and escalating war in Ukraine this morning. The office of President Zelensky says airstrikes have plunged close to 1.4 million households into darkness. Meanwhile, evacuations are ramping up in parts of the country currently in Russian hands.
Ukraine's military displayed Russian rockets that hit the Kharkiv region, including cluster bombs, which are banned in many countries.
Ukrainian officials say an estimated 1/3 of the country is now without power. Time now this morning is 6:12. The Disney magic is still on ice for one last day. Ahead, we'll tell you how you can catch the show. And some folks in Bessemer make sure everyone get to experience Halloween. We'll bring you there. Stay with us.